Hey everybody, it's Mike here again, and we don't have music again this month, so we're going to chat with you. I've got Ashley here.
Oh, hi.
And Jessica.
Hello.
And Josh.
What's up?
And no Chris. And we're just going to chat about something. And I need someone to roll me a D4 then to pick what we're going to talk about. And don't roll. Actually, you know what? Roll a D3. Roll a D3, not a D4. So roll a D6, I guess, and we'll 3. So that would be 2.
How do I?
On our no, I'm sorry. That would be home game.
No.
Games. I'm looking at my list of topics.
That's just 3. I rolled a D3.
Oh, it's 3. Oh, okay. Well, that's actually the thing I most want to talk about, although it's a little technical. So the thing I want to talk about is my efforts to rewrite the Star Frontiers game system, and I wanted to get your input on something because I've been rewriting this system, revising it to modernize it, so at some point we can have a Star Frontiers campaign. So here's what I'm working on. The old Star Frontiers game, which was published in 1982 and is a science fiction game. The old game is a percentile-based game, which means anytime you want to accomplish anything, you roll under a percentile target. So you maybe have a 40% chance to hit. You try to roll a 40 or lower on percentile dice. This is not unusual, even in modern games. There are modern games. I think Call of Cthulhu is percentile. There are plenty of percentile-based games. There are modifiers for your rolls. So, for example, maybe your target's really big, so you get a bonus to your target number. Or maybe you're trying to shut down a very difficult advanced robot, so you have a penalty to your target, right? That's the way the system works. I'm trying to figure out the action economy and how combat will work, because the system is very dated. And I have basically a couple choices. Again, the way the basic system works is you roll a couple dice, percentile dice. If you roll under your target, then you hit the target and then you roll damage. And that damage can be modified by armors or defensive screens and other stuff because it's a science fiction setting. One idea I'm toying with is having some sort of dodge mechanic. One way to do that, and it's sort of the way that Dungeons & Dragons and other games and Pathfinder and other modern systems do it, is you just have a target number you're trying to roll over. Well, this is a percentile system. You have a target number you're trying to roll under. So the one way to do it is to have a simple dodge modifier. That is, whatever target you're shooting at has some penalty that it imposes to your shot. So, for example, let's suppose you have a 60% chance to hit, and you're shooting at something fast and nimble. Maybe it imposes a minus 20 penalty. So now you have only a 40% chance to hit. Does that make sense? Everybody following that?
Yes.
The nice thing about that is that it doesn't require another roll by your target. It's just a modifier to your chance to hit, right? That's nice and simple. Another way to do things, and it's the way that things are done in a modern... There's someone else did a modernization of Star Frontiers, although they don't directly market it as that, but that's basically what it is. It's called Frontier Space. They let the target make a dodge roll. So they have to roll something to try to dodge your attack. That's nice because it lets you have another stat that you can affect. You can improve over time your ability to dodge, and you get to roll when someone shoots at you. The problem is that doubles the amount of rolling for every attack. Okay, so that's one problem. On the other hand, here's another cool thing. The way that they have the action economy in Frontier Space is every player can do as much as they want during a round. You can do as many things as you want to do, but every time you do something, you take a cumulative minus 20 penalty after the first thing you do.
Okay.
So it's sort of like the multiple attack penalty in Pathfinder.
Neat.
Right?
Right.
So you shoot once, fine. You want to shoot again? Okay, you can do that. You got a minus 20 penalty. You want to shoot again? Fine. Now you've got a minus 40 penalty. You want to shoot twice and do some sort of knowledge check? Now you've got a minus 60 on that knowledge check, right? It's almost guaranteed to fail. The reason that's cool when it comes to dodging is that dodging is a reaction, and that cumulative penalty applies, right? So if you say you want to shoot twice, and then later you need to dodge, you're going to have a minus 40 to that dodge attempt, which makes the action economy really interesting, right? You've got to weigh, how many things do I want to do? What if I need that dodge later? Maybe I just want to shoot one time and that's all. But it makes it more complicated, right? Because then you have to roll the dodge. What do you think sounds like the most fun? Keeping it simple, but less strategic? Or making it more complicated with more rolling, but more strategic?
From a player standpoint, I like rolling dice.
Yeah.
Like, more dice, let's roll more. But from a GM standpoint, like you're already rolling so much, adding that extra thing can be exhausting. Like just one more thing you have to then remember and deal with. But for the idea that it was all going to be cumulative, and so you would, whatever on your turn minus you got would also affect this reaction, I was down for it. But
Yeah.
it just sounds like if you're doing 2 actions, you're already at minus 20, and then you do the reaction, so that's a minus 40, which makes it seem very unlikely that you're actually going to succeed. And so how often is that actually, like, just you do 2 actions in your turn and the dodge suddenly becomes very difficult. So like, how often are you going to bother with it?
Right.
Yeah, so I like a simplified system, but my thought with that version is that people are always going to dodge. So essentially every attack is going to have a minus penalty because that person's attempting to dodge.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
With the simple version, the dodge is applied automatically. You don't even consider, like, do you want to choose to dodge? Right? You would just apply the penalty to the target roll.
In which case, why even have it? Because your percentage to hit is going to essentially just include a dodge all the time.
Ashley makes a good point. Like a person, like if we're looking this as like actual people, a person is always going to dodge. Like,
right.
There's not going to be an instance where a person's going to be like, you're shooting me. Well, I'll just stand here. It's fine. No, people dodge.
Right. I guess the reason you wouldn't bother is if your penalty has built up high enough from taking actions, then you wouldn't even stand a chance.
Oh, yeah.
It just sounds like in the simplified version, you don't have that
Yeah.
Right.
Like
penalty or anything.
In the simplified version, you're always dodging.
Right.
Which seems more realistic, but also this is a game and we don't necessarily need realism.
I mean, yeah, the simplified version is like the armor class version, right? Your target's harder to hit because they're nimble. Either way you do it, you can have some targets that are easier to hit because they're slow, and other targets that are easier to hit that are harder to hit because they're fast. And you can do the same thing with the dodge rolls. You can have creatures that have high dodge bonuses such that, they could take a couple actions and still have a decent chance to dodge. And you could have other creatures where they have no chance to dodge. It's also possible that this system might have critical effects. So you might want to avoid rolling things that might fail because you might suffer a critical effect. And so if you choose to dodge, you might say, well, I've only got a 5% chance to dodge, but why not give it a try, right? But if there are critical failure effects, if you have only a 5% chance to dodge, you have a better chance of rolling one of those critical failure effects.
Yeah.
And that would be a reason not to do it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I think that calculated dodge based on what your nimbleness is, it might simplify it, but I think you might have to play test it quite a bit so that not everyone's like a stormtrooper and missing constantly, because you have like a 40% chance to hit and then a minus 10 or something like.
Yeah, that's another thing that has to be balanced is when I give everybody points to spend on their initial skills, I have to figure out how many you get and how high you can make your target rolls because of exactly that, right? Like if everyone starts with only a 40% chance to hit, which would have been what you would have started with in the original game, the original Star Frontiers, then if you build some sort of dodge bonus or not dodge penalty or chance to dodge into that, no one's going to hit anything ever, right?
Yeah.
So you would need to have people starting off with like 80% chance to hit if you have a dodge built into the system. Josh, any thoughts?
Yeah, I got thoughts. I got two failed attempts at doing something similar in Pathfinder First Edition.
Yeah.
So, and it's the same in D&D. So your armor class starts with a 10, right? That's basically a little under D20 roll. So you can make people roll defensive rolls. So I've tried it where both people roll an attack roll and the other person rolls an armor class roll, a defense roll.
Yeah, I've heard of other people doing that too.
And nobody liked that. Just because it took longer, and then it was always like comparing the two. So nobody liked that one. Then I tried it where the players are always rolling. So if something attacks the player, they're rolling defensively.
Right.
And they're rolling to attack the other thing. So I tried that. They also didn't like that. So, yeah, those both failed. I thought the second one would actually work.
There are plenty of systems that actually do the second one.
Right.
And when I run something like Lasers and Feelings, that's what I do with that too, is the monsters have no stats. They don't roll anything. I just have the players roll to dodge, and it seems to work fine.
I think your complex one sounds more interesting. That doesn't mean it's going to be better, but it sounds more interesting to me. I think it'd be worth starting with that, and then if it doesn't work, falling back to the simple one.
Okay. All right. It doubles the number of rolls for every attack, right? Which is kind of a problem.
Right.
Well, maybe not for every attack. There will be cases where players say, no, I don't want to dodge.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, it is cool, right? I like the idea that you have to weigh, do I want to shoot 2 times? What if I need to dodge? Right? I like that idea.
I think it's neat to have those choices getting made. Yeah.
Yeah. The other nice thing about it is that I can hide some information from you if we do it that way, right? If you shoot at a target, I need to tell you how much of a penalty to apply to your to hit roll or your to hit target, right? So if they have if they have a 20 dodge bonus, I need to tell you have to take off 20 from your target, right? And GMs don't like doing that. They don't like saying, here is some information about the monster, just like I don't like telling you a monster's armor class, right? Doing it the way where the target rolls to dodge means that you don't get that information easily. That makes sense?
It does.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the bigger gaming question is why is that bad? Why are the players not allowed to know the target number?
At some point, we kind of figure it out.
That's right. Yeah, that's something you figure out. Like you figure out other monster weaknesses or immunities, that kind of stuff. It's part of learning about what the monster can do, right?
Yeah.
And that in the older game was a big part of the game, was figuring out what the monster could do, how hard it was to hit. You know, we need to give up on using melee weapons against it and focus on using things that make it save against something, right? That was part of the game. I don't think that's quite as big a part of the game as it used to be.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's still, the number's an abstraction for what its capabilities are. So if I'm trying to attack something in real life and it's really hard to hit, I can tell that immediately. There's no secret number there.
Right.
I'm like, oh man, this thing is fast. I can't hit it.
You can also tell that a dragon has a thick hide, or someone has on really big, heavy armor.
Yeah. And, you can shoot a bow at a bow and arrow and be like, oh, that was a good shot. And then it doesn't pierce the hide. And then I'm like, oh, man, I'm going to have trouble with that. I could tell that immediately.
Right.
And that's the same thing as letting the players know the abstraction. It's to convert it to a fantasy reality narrative. So I've struggled with that myself. And I've made many a game master angry.
I'm okay with just giving the players that information that, look, this creature's fast and nimble. You have a percent chance to hit of 80%, but you need to subtract 20 from that because it's so fast, right? I'm okay with saying that. I'm old enough and used to the older way of playing that I feel like I'm missing something when I do that, but I understand that that's just because I'm old. And I'm okay with changing that.
In the same way that, you're in D&D, be like, I rolled a 17 to hit. And I'd be like, well, I rolled a 77 to hit. And you'll be like, nope, that doesn't hit. You're like, my gun should hit on 70% or 80% or lower. Right. But obviously this thing, is faster. You don't have to tell me the negative. You can just say it doesn't hit.
That's true. We would have to communicate a little bit more information there. Like you would have to tell me not just your roll, but what your target number was. Or you'd have to tell me by what percent you missed, right? And either way, there's a little bit more math or reporting of information to do compared to if I just give you the number up front.
Yeah.
But, okay, cool. Well, maybe I'll experiment with the complex way first and see if it's interesting enough to keep doing. And if it doesn't work, then we'll just simplify it. Cool. A reason why I ask is because a lot of systems are moving away from having opposed rolls. So the upcoming 1D&D is moving away from having opposed rolls. Pathfinder has moved away from opposed rolls.
Right.
And Dodge is essentially an opposed roll. So it seems to be the way that everybody's going, less rolling, but it's also a little bit less interesting in this context. So, All right. Well, cool. Thank you for your input. I appreciate it and value it, and will update my rules accordingly. And I think that's everything for today. So we'll be back next Saturday with a regular episode of TFTGGW. Thanks for listening, everyone. Bye.
Bye.